special edition of OU Nightly, the 2016 Oklahoma primary election. Our primary is one of nearly a dozen held across the nation today, with hundreds of convention delegates hanging in the balance.
As the night wears on, the OU Nightly team will be working to bring you the latest vote totals from around the state as well as the nation. We'll also focus on some of the issues of this campaign and talk to the people, the voters of Oklahoma, who are looking to Washington for help.
We have news crews at key venues in the metro area. They're going to keep us informed about what Oklahomans are doing to follow the results and pull for their candidates. And we'll bring you the results from other Super Tuesday states.
And in addition to our OU Nightly staff, we have two experts to provide perspective and analysis of what happens tonight. And Jason Pudlow is a PhD candidate from the OU Political Science Department. Welcome, Jason. Thank you so much for being here.
And his partner in thoughtful insights is also a PhD candidate from the OU Political Science Department, Lucianne Nelson. Lucianne, you've seen the election throughout today, and now votes are being counted. What can you tell us so far about what we've seen?
Well, it's definitely an interesting race, an unusual one. I know everyone keeps talking about that and mentioning it, but of course it is. And so it's really, tonight is going to give us a clear direction of where the GOP is going to be heading from here on out.
Thanks. Okay, and Jason, basically the same question. What do you think we'll be seeing?
Yeah, well, no surprises yet, but the night is young, and so I think the second place race for the Republicans will be most exciting to watch.
Definitely. All right, thank you so much.
So far in the evening, we've had what we think is going to be wrapping up. Vermont, of course, going to Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side. No surprise there.
Right.
With Hillary taking Virginia and Georgia, I believe. But on the Republican side, there's only been one so far that's wrapped up to Trump, but everything else is too close to call. Yep. Can you give us some insight on those races and which way we think they may be able to go? Or
so some states we're expecting will be clearer than others. Probably Texas will be one of those, big state. Oklahoma as well, we're hoping will probably be fairly clear. But others are going to be a little tighter, like Colorado, Massachusetts, and it'll be interesting to see, again, like Jason mentioned, who the second place is really the important part for now.
So when talking about the second place race, what is important for those two that are behind Trump? What is important for them tonight, Jason, to claim a victory, a small victory tonight in the Super Tuesday elections?
So what we're looking for is they have to show that they can last the rest of this contest. So the conventions are somewhere late summer, and so they have to show that they have the support and the people to actually keep this thing going. And so a strong second place showing tonight may show that they can do well as Trump possibly weakens as he goes west.
Awesome, thank you.
And what can you tell us about the dueling polls? The polls have just closed in Oklahoma, and we'll be seeing some voting results shortly. So this may be your very last look you'll have of what the pollsters think is going to happen. In the Republican race, the Sooner poll shows Donald Trump comfortably leading both Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. All candidates have spent considerable time trying to woo us Oklahoma voters, and Trump has emerged with a commanding lead. And although 9% of Republicans remain undecided. And on the Democratic side, Sooner poll also shows a widening race. The numbers reveal Hillary Clinton with a 9-point lead over Senator Bernie Sanders. But in this race, 29% of Democrats likely to vote still have not made a decision. And another poll released yesterday by Monmouth University shows similar results. Trump leads Rubio and Cruz by about the same margin found by Sooner poll. But the Monmouth poll of Democratic voters was wildly different. It shows Bernie Sanders has pulled ahead of Hillary Clinton by a 5-point margin. The Monmouth poll was taken about the same time as Sooner polls, but with more than 25% fewer voters sampled. But regardless of what the pollsters' predict, election officials told OU Nightly's Courtney Boggs voters showed up in huge numbers at the only polls that really count.
Election board office, this is Annette.
The Cleveland County Election Board does their fair share of work for the community all year round. But there's one day every 4 years that keeps them busier than most.
Our phone started ringing the minute we turned it on this morning at 6 o'clock, wanting to know, am I registered? Where do I vote?
Super Tuesday is a day of primary elections for several states across the nation, including Oklahoma. Before the polls opened this morning, Cleveland County had already received 6,000 votes due to early voting and mail-in ballots.
When we have an open presidential seat, we have more people voting.
Officials believe that the county is on track to reach a 70% voter turnout. But the board is still encouraging as many voters as possible to make their way to the polls.
No one's going to hold a gun to your head and say, you have to vote. So it's the individual's choice, as it should be. Of course, we want 100% voter turnout in every election. And
although there are more Republicans registered in Cleveland County than Democrats, many polling sites have seen a fairly even number of voters from each party.
One of the busier voter precincts today is near the University of Oklahoma. Nightly's Patrick Smith shows us that OU students are turning out in force.
People have been showing up left and right here at St. John's Episcopal Church to make sure their voices are heard in this year's primary elections. Unlike most voting places in Oklahoma, this neighborhood is made up of primarily Democrats. In a random sampling of voters, Bernie Sanders seemed to have the edge. So who'd you vote for?
I voted for Bernie Sanders. Well, I voted for Bernie. I don't expect to get what I want.
There's also Clinton support in this precinct.
Well, I voted for Democrat Hillary Clinton.
The steady flow of voters is predicted to be a torrent after 5 o'clock when people get off work. Patrick Smith, OU Nightly.
Thanks. So with the Oklahoma polls and everything, what can you tell us about how the polling works and when we think we'll be able to see numbers coming around for Oklahoma in particular?
Okay, so there's two kinds of polls that we're working with here. One are forecast polls of likely voters, and so these are done before election day of people that say that they might vote. Now, what we know historically is that these people could also be wrong. They may change their mind in the poll, and so sometimes these are a bit more volatile. Exit polls happen after someone has left the polling station, and so unless they're lying to us, we kind of know what's happening there.
What do you think is most exciting about watching this, just because we don't know what's going to happen in Oklahoma?
Yeah, so I think what's exciting now is watching how the polls keep going back and forth on, in particular, Sanders and Clinton. And so that's just a fun race. It makes Oklahoma a competitive and important state in what is usually not like important competition for us. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sanders is, interestingly enough, taking such a strong lead in a southern state. We're considering Oklahoma Southern in this conversation because earlier projections of him were that he wouldn't be able to carry a southern state simply because he kind of has more of an urban feel to him, not so much in touch with country values and that sort of thing. And so it's been really interesting watching him surge ahead here in Oklahoma, especially compared to Hillary Clinton, who normally would do well in a state like this.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. Well, now we're going to turn to Braden Long. We have some numbers coming in from Tennessee. Braden, what can you show us?
Yeah, Lucianne's observations kind of really fit into Tennessee right now. Bernie Sanders is not projected to win. Hillary Clinton with 1% of the district's reporting is expected to win. 59% of the vote right now for the former Secretary of State. In the Republican race, Donald Trump is projected to win right now. 50% of the vote, only 1% reporting still, with Rubio Cruz and close behind Kasich and Carson at 4%. Not really close right now. We have more districts coming in, or more percentages coming in, more states coming in. Oklahoma still too close to call right now, but we'll keep you updated as we go on throughout the night, guys. Right now, back to you.
Thanks, Braden. So this Oklahoma right now. People are saying that there's going to be the independents that are going to come out and vote are going to be a real swing for Bernie and also for Trump because of the not classic politician take. What kind of insight can you give us on that, on the independent voters and how that's going to bring Bernie maybe into the forefront of Oklahoma?
Absolutely. Most interestingly, in Oklahoma this last year, the Democrat Party has opened their primary to independents, allowing them to participate in the primary process. The Republicans have not done that yet, and so what we will probably see is a lot of these independents crossing over to the Democrat Party to participate. And so they might drive up Bernie Sanders' poll results, or maybe even Hillary Clinton's. We'll see how that goes. But they're certainly taking a more important role in this election cycle here.
Okay, thank you so much. And part of the reason for a heavy voter turnout could be the big increase in registered voters. The heated campaigns and the frequent visits by presidential candidates created a late rush in those wanting to take part in the primary. The Oklahoma Election Board reports that between January 15th and February 5th, the number of registered voters in Oklahoma surged by more than 30,000 people. About 19,000 new voters are Republican, while nearly 6,000 signed up as Democrats.
So what is the insight? Why do you think we have so many more registered voters coming out in Oklahoma?
Well, I think because it's so competitive this year that it's caused more excitement. So what we're looking at are results like the 2008 elections, where you had a wide open race on both sides. People were excited by the candidates, and so there was a lot of turnout, even in primaries, which historically people don't come out. So this has been fantastic, actually.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a fun election to participate in. I mean, who doesn't have strong feelings about some of the candidates? And so I'm certain that's also driving up the desire to go out and participate, especially in primary elections.
I also think it has a lot to do with so many of the presidential candidates coming to Oklahoma. We haven't seen that in a while, and we've seen all of them, even a few like Rubio coming twice.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
Well, what's interesting about Oklahoma being such a state that everyone's focusing in on is you get people targeting different audiences, like today on different social medias. There's a lot of YouTube ads for some of the Cruz and some of the people who are focusing more on the younger crowd, and then you get your traditional primetime TV commercials for Hillary, because that's who she's focusing on. There was even actually a Snapchat geo-filter that Cruz had, I believe, he was the only one to do it. So I thought that was interesting. Can you just give us a little insight, explain what kind of stuff goes into like them trying to target certain people, and why in Oklahoma are they doing things such like that?
Absolutely. So for one reason is that
I'm going to have to break in on you really quickly. No, that's okay. We have a live shot. We're going to have Haley Huey joining us in Oklahoma City at the Republican headquarters. Haley?
We are here at the Republican headquarters in Oklahoma City. Right now, we are surrounded by majority Trump fans. There are some Cruz fans sprinkled around. Right now, it seems like Cruz is in the lead. Trump and Marco Rubio are kind of, in the tight race for second place. Everyone seems excited here. They are really rooting for Trump. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting over here. Even driving on the way here, tons of Trump signs. Everyone seems excited. A little bummed that maybe he won't win Oklahoma, but they are pumped that so far he's won 4 states. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Haley. Okay, we've got some Oklahoma Democrat numbers coming in. We're going to go to Braden. What can you tell us about this, Braden?
We have new numbers here in the Sooner State, like you said. Right now, Bernie Sanders, about 57% of the vote, not close enough to call right now. Hillary at 33% with 1% reporting. There's been a lot of campaigning throughout the last few weeks here in Oklahoma, no doubt about that. Bernie being in Tulsa, back in Oklahoma City as well. But now heading on to Massachusetts, ready to get to call this race, or get to close to call this race. 45% actually dead even right now, Clinton and Sanders. Similar story across a lot of the other regions of the nation right now, being extremely liberal up in Massachusetts, both going to do well there in the Democratic primary. A close race as well for Massachusetts, although I'm sure these numbers need to be a little bit revised. Not quite, I'm pretty sure 45% for those aren't exactly right. Coming from CNN, I have 51.6% for Trump right now, 16% for Kasich, and 13% for Marco Rubio as well. Now, a number of places have already been called across the nation as well, including Alabama, Tennessee, that we already mentioned as well. We'll have more numbers coming in for you. Right now, it looks like Senator Ted Cruz is up in Texas, 43% of the vote right now, with just under 1% of the districts reporting there. Right now, let's go back to you.
Thanks, Braden. Along with all these new registered voters, election officials report number of people who have voted early rose dramatically. In the 2012 election, about 14,500 people chose to vote early. In the 3 days of early voting ending Saturday, more than 34,000 voters cast ballots, more than double the number from 4 years ago. So that's a huge number of people coming out to early vote. Just what do you think drives that? Why? I mean, we've talked about how this is a fun election, good to be a part of, but that's a very, very large number. What would drive that many people to come out and early vote and to register?
Well, absolutely, the momentum that these candidates have generated, specifically Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, they're really able to, I mean, no matter how you feel about them as individuals, you certainly, our voters are certainly responding very, as we can see, very well to them. And by well, I mean coming out to actually participate in the process. And so I believe that that's really driving the momentum here as far as early voting goes.
Do you agree with that? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah,
as well?
I mean, and the more chance that people have to vote, like if it's expanded just off of Tuesday onto other chances, more people vote, you know, and it makes sense, right? So with the excitement, with the expanded opportunity, we see these numbers are increasing.
And with in the 2012 election, on the Democratic side, it was pretty much a wrap for Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Could that, I mean, does that have anything to do with voter turnout? Because the part of the Democratic side isn't really even needing to come out and vote in the primaries because of they know who's gonna be representing their party.
Right, absolutely. And it helps too, I think, that all these candidates are actually coming here. You want to vote for someone you met, right? And so, when you see, oh, Bernie Sanders was here in Oklahoma City or Ted Cruz was here in Oklahoma City, you certainly feel a little more connected to the process. And so it helps makes people feel like they have a civic responsibility, right?
Right. I mean, so all 5 major candidates have been to the state in the last 2 days, which is just amazing. 2012, that was not the case.
No.
It was desolate. There was no ads, rare visits. Now you watch a Thunder game, and there's all kinds of ads happening. So.
Right. All right, we're going to switch over to Braden Long. We've got some new numbers coming in from from Texas. Now we have Ted Cruz is supposed to win this, but Braden, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Cruz is up right now in the Lone Star State. Go ahead and take a look at our Republicans. 42%, it's not really that close based on only 1% again reporting. 31% for Donald Trump, who did campaign down in Texas earlier this week. 14 for Rubio, 4 for Carson, 2 for Kasich. Not really a threat back home for Ted Cruz, still showing strong in his home state. Democrats are a little bit closer, not that much, about 30-point spread for Hillary and Bernie as well, with Bernie in the lead right now down in Texas as well. These numbers, 5% reporting for the Democrats. Clinton Sanders both campaigning hard in the Lone Star State as well. But right now, races on either side aren't really that close. Cruz looking to dominate in his home state. Clinton right now with a big lead, hoping to hold on and gain some much needed over 100 delegates out of the Lone Star State, guys.
From Tulsa to Lawton, a parade of presidential politicians has covered Oklahoma. Their campaigns have collectively spent hundreds of thousands of dollars pursuing Oklahoma voters, and Oklahomans by tens of thousands have responded by making their way to the polls. And for what? In hot pursuit of delegates to the Republican National Convention and a chance to become President of the United States. Currently, Donald Trump leads all GOP contenders with 81 delegates in hand. Cruz and Rubio are far distant second. On the Democratic side, while it feels like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are locked in a close race, Clinton has quickly grabbed an overwhelming lead over Bernie Sanders. No matter what happens in tonight's Oklahoma primary, the numbers won't change that much. There are slightly more than 40 delegates available for each party to claim in the Sooner State, a relatively low payoff for all the time and energy that they've spent and the money that they've spent here. But this is Super Tuesday, and Oklahoma is one of nearly a dozen states casting ballots, and the total number of delegates is up for grabs, increasing to a number that could swing the entire election. More than 600 Republican delegates and nearly 900 delegates on the Democratic side. By Wednesday morning, we'll know who the big winners are, and one or more of the candidates in today's primary will be on their way to securing their party's nomination.
All right, we're going to be taking a break right now. We'll be coming back to talk more with our experts about what we should expect later on at the polls. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Cool.
That's good. Welcome back to our special coverage of Super Tuesday here on OU Nightly. Bernie Sanders is speaking at a rally in Vermont, and Lindsay Gomez joins us now in the News Center to give us an update on that. Lindsay?
Bernie said this campaign is not just about electing a president, but about transforming America. He added that this election is meant to build the United States up to its fullest potential. He also took a jab at Donald Trump when he spoke about the diversity in America.
A political revolution is bringing our people together, black and white, Latino, Asian American, gay and straight, people born in America, people who have immigrated to America. When we bring our people together, when we do not allow the Donald Trumps of the world to divide us up.
I will continue giving updates as more polling information comes through, but for now, back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Lindsay. As legislatures are proposing multiple solutions to Oklahoma's low teacher salary, but so far there is little hope for any of them passing. So as OU Nightly's Clark Sachs tells us, teachers are looking for leadership from the top and a president who's committed to improving education.
Everyone I know has a second job or has a husband who makes twice as much as them. Like, that's the only way you can get by if you're a teacher. It's just not possible.
With teachers in Oklahoma not seeing a base salary raise since 2008, being a teacher in the state has become tougher than ever. Many teachers are finding it difficult to get by with such low wages.
I also have side jobs. I've actually, I tutor like 5 children after school. I also drive Uber. I've had to take on several side jobs.
And while low teacher pay is forcing an estimated 50% or more of new teachers out of state, it's creating a brain drain and a teacher shortage in the state of Oklahoma.
We're losing a lot of great teachers to Texas and to all the surrounding states because they get paid a lot more there.
But some continue to stick around to try and make a difference.
My mom said something to me at one point, and she said, if you leave, then who's going to save us?
I love my job. Yeah, I definitely do it, and it's not for the money. By the end of kindergarten, they're reading, and it's just, I mean, that's where you get your paycheck, is right there.
Although the few left in Oklahoma are doing it for much more than the money, teachers are still hoping for some help from the state, and they are looking for a presidential candidate who makes education a high priority. Clark Sachs, OU Nightly.
New bills with proposed increases for teacher pay will be voted on in November.
And Oklahoma has one of the highest poverty rates in the nation. Nightly's Lindsay Gomez explores the importance of income disparity in this year's presidential race.
I sat down with a group of millennial voters right here on campus. They told me all of their issues on this election cycle, including social justice and economics, but what stood out most...
Sorry for that, but can we first get into a little bit about the difference between delegates and superdelegates and how those affect both sides, Democrat and Republican?
Absolutely. So delegates are the link that tie a popular vote to a candidate delegate at the National Convention. And so what the delegates do is they pledge or they promise to represent the popular vote at the National Convention. A superdelegate, though, is an unpledged or unpromised delegate, meaning that they really have no obligation to vote a specific way when the parties have their conventions.
And yeah, how is that going to affect the Oklahoma race and then on a national perspective?
Sure. So it's a bit less important for the Republican side because they have less of them. With the Democrats, there is some 700 supers, and so depending on whom these officials like, it can really shape how this race will play out.
Now we've got some updated Oklahoma poll numbers. Braden, what can you tell us about the latest on that?
Well, both still close to call, Republican and Democratic here in the Sooner State. Right now, Ben Carson and John Kasich being the low men on the totem pole, Cruz, Rubio, and Trump all pretty close within 10 percentage points. Trump getting the majority of the vote right now, 34%. Oklahoma is really a different race for both Republicans and Democrats. You don't have to do well in the cities in Oklahoma, and if you're a Republican, to do well overall in the primaries. Trump has a lot of supporters in rural Oklahoma right now with those 6 percentage precincts reporting, and you can really be able to conglomerate those voters together to do well. Now, the Democrats on the other side are largely in the cities. Clinton 50%, Sanders 44%, still too close to call right now. But if you don't do well in the cities, if you're a Democrat, then you don't have a very good chance. So Clinton, Sanders both doing equally as well right now. Oklahoma City, Edmond, Tulsa as well. Back to the Lone Star State. Republicans is tightening up a little bit between Ted Cruz and Trump. Cruz is home state, but not pulling away like we were expecting him to do in the Lone Star State. 39% of the vote with 4% of the precincts reporting, 30% for Trump. Rubio a bit of a distant 22 points behind for Cruz, and Carson and Kasich not even a contest for them right now. 4%, but with, again, 4% of the districts reporting. Democrats, a little bit different story. Still not ready to call it quite yet. 68% for Hillary Clinton, 30% for Sanders in the Lone Star State. Right now, Clinton has a projected, we were talking about delegates and superdelegates right now, with her wins already already earlier on in South Carolina, Iowa, and other states as well. She has 661 projected delegates of the 2,383 needed to win, with Bernie only having a little bit over 100 right now. So guys, right now, not much of a contest. Clinton is doing much better in Texas and some other states as well. But right now, Ashley, go for it.
Thank you. And as Braden just told us, we have Clinton was 68% and Bernie Sanders and 30% in Texas. But now Sanders has no shortage of support in Tulsa. Nightly's Dylan Jasna shows us some students back at the University of Oklahoma question some of his more passionate promises.
That's right. Last week I sat down with a group of millennial voters right here on campus. They told me all of their issues on this election cycle, including social justice and economics. But what stood out most in this forum was Bernie Sanders' ambitious promise for free education.
The younger demographic is probably going to be more gearing toward Bernie just because of the whole free tuition.
I'm really leaning towards Bernie Sanders.
Even though only one student supported Bernie, his free education policy was the hottest topic that evening.
In middle school, if the class president promises like free pizza, no homework if you vote for him, that sort of feels a little bit what Bernie is doing with free college tuition.
I hear a lot that he's not realistic with what he's promising, and so if he doesn't know like economically what damage it could do, then I don't know how much he could be trusted.
Our political expert here at the university weighed in on the issue.
There's a limit to what you can promise, but you promise in order to get people to show up. And any smart person knows you're not going to get everything you were promised. That's just the hallmark of being an adult.
Most surprisingly, some in this group labeled their generation as emotionally entitled voters, lacking a strong work ethic.
He's just appealing to their emotional side, and I pray to God that it won't have an effect.
Decisive issues like these are the reason why Clinton and Sanders are not only neck and neck in the nation, but right here in the Sooner State. Currently, we hold the closest Democratic race out of any other state voting this Super Tuesday, pushing Oklahoma into the spotlight of national politics. Dylan Jasna, OU Nightly.
Sanders and Clinton are currently... Okay, so what can you tell us about how you think these students are reacting? Because there's a lot of stuff going around about how all millennials are all gung-ho Bernie Sanders and all just
feel the burn.
But obviously some people aren't. Jason, what can you tell us about some stuff like that?
So with Sanders supporters, they do tend to be younger. Younger voters also don't tend to go out to vote very often. And so it puts Sanders in this quandary of there's a lot of excitement there, but there's not always a lot of turnout. And so this could be a problem in the long term for him.
Yes, especially in the primaries where younger voters are even likelier to participate in the process. So he's got this huge online presence. Everybody's feeling the burn. Everybody's tweeting about it, Instagramming it. But when it actually comes to today, will they actually go out and vote in the primaries? Based on what we know from the past, it doesn't look likely. And so that certainly is impacting why we're saying, wow, Bernie Sanders should be doing so well, but in fact, he's not.
Right.
So if we go back a little bit, we just had our update from Braden about okay, well now we're going to go to Braden with new Georgia numbers. Braden, what can you tell us?
Yeah, we're ready to call a couple more states already. Georgia and Vermont as well. Republican race, Trump 46%, not even close to Ted Cruz's 22, Marco Rubio's 21. Like a lot of the rest of the states, Carson and Kasich really not that much of a factor, with 10 or 12% of the districts reporting Trump dominating in the Peach State as well. 46%, almost half, which is none of these states are winner-take-all states, but that's going to be an overwhelming amount of delegates ready for the businessman. Now in Georgia, Clinton, even stronger lead right now over Bernie Sanders, 76% in Georgia, 23% for Bernie Sanders right now, leaving about a 1% error margin right there. 7% of the districts reporting for Georgia. Clinton, again, campaigning hard in the southern states, expected to do well in the southern states, and lives up to it as well. Just about an even more extreme difference in Vermont, though, for Bernie Sanders' home state. 88% of the vote compared to Clinton's 12%. No surprise there for the former mayor and representative and now senator from Vermont. 7% of the district's reporting. Back over to the Republican side for Vermont right now, still a little bit too close to call. Donald Trump right now with a little bit more than 30% of the vote up in the Green Mountain State. 9% Cruz, not even a factor. 29% Kasich, one of his stronger states up in the Northeast. Rubio 20%, and Carson at 5% with 7% of the districts reporting. We'll continue to update these closer races like in Vermont, here in Oklahoma as well. But for right now, Georgia and Vermont are ready to go to Clinton and Sanders respectively. Right now, Republican race still too close to call in Vermont. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Braden. So, Jason, what do you think about those numbers, both the Republicans and the Democrat numbers?
Yeah, well, I think so far we're not surprised that Sanders has won Vermont.
Right.
It's his home state, and so we expect generally that a candidate wins their home state, and so that was not that surprising. The other numbers still digesting it some, but. Do you have thoughts on it?
And candidate Kasich is doing really well there. He's really focused a lot of his attention on the East Coast, and he certainly knows that that's where he's appealing very well to his constituency. And so we're seeing in these results that has really paid off for him. Whether or not it will work out in the long term, we'll still have to see.
And speaking of home states, going back to Texas, what do you think about Donald Trump catching up to Ted Cruz? Because we thought that Ted Cruz would definitely pull away since that is his home state.
Yeah, so that is definitely worrisome for the Cruz campaign. If I were working on it, I would definitely be worried about the close margins he has there. Normally, people from their home states are just able to sweep the entire thing. And so the fact that Trump is down 10 points is really, really nerve-wracking. It should be for Ted Cruz. And so that's an interesting little development that we're seeing so far. Jason, what do you think?
Well, and if this goes south here and Cruz can't hold his lead and Rubio gets closer, it's putting Rubio in striking range now, and so there's multi levels of problems here. So
what exactly would be striking range for Rubio in this perspective?
If Rubio keeps coming in second place, there is the possibility that he wins overall.
Yeah.
Just because Trump hasn't won everything all the time, and so he doesn't have all of the counts.
Can you explain that just a little bit more in depth for our viewers?
Yeah. So the way that this works is by the convention, a candidate has to reach a certain number of votes. Because Rubio has had a consistent second place performance, or second place ish, he keeps getting votes. And if he keeps at that pathway, if Trump struggles here on out, if he's placing second or third, it's possible that he catches up.
It's kind of like that steady pace wins the race.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And if the establishment Republican Party decides that it no longer wants to be associated with Donald Trump, or there is some split in the party, they'll immediately turn to whoever is a strong lead following Trump. And so Rubio certainly wants to be positioned well in that way.
So going back with the Republican Party and Trump, whenever he signed that letter of intent to be considered a Republican, does that hold any weight if the Republican Party wants to cut ties with him? Would that come into play, or is that just on his end?
It's kind of more on his end. It's a fun party trick. I mean, there's nothing that can be done to enforce it or not enforce it, really, in practicality. And so it's just a fancy pledge at its core.
Okay, and it looks like we have some more updates. We have Texas and Oklahoma, but Braden, I think we're going to go to Texas poll updates first.
Yep, right now, still a close race in Texas for the Republican Party right now. But Carson's still way out of it. Trump has gone down 1% to 29%. Rubio risen up to 20%. Still too close to call. 19% of the districts reporting Ted Cruz, as we've been talking about, not doing as well in his home state as we expected. Kasich and Carson still not really a threat as much as the other three are. Cruz really, as we have been saying, comparatively struggling in his home state to what we thought he would be doing. The Democratic race also still too close to call, but pretty big margin, 40 points, 41 points actually. Clinton at 70%, Sanders at 29% as well. Going back here to Oklahoma, where we said it's the closest race for Democrats and pretty close for Republicans as well. 4-point spread. That's it. 8 precincts reporting, 33% Trump, 29% Cruz. Rubio's very close behind, 24%, reflective of what we saw in the Sooner polls and Monmouth University as well. Kasich and Carson not a factor. Democratic race, too close to call. Still too close to call. Gonna be close for a while. 49% for Clinton, 45% for Sanders. Campaigning heavy. Bill Clinton, or former President Bill Clinton, being here twice in the last week here in the Sooner State. Sanders being in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, as we already talked about. Really realizing that Oklahoma is, this campaign, a true battleground state, guys.
Thank you, Braden. And once again, we are joined with Lucia Nelson and Jason Pudlow. Could you just give us your insights on those numbers, on Oklahoma, about how close it is between both parties in that matter?
Yeah. So what's not surprising here is that Trump and Sanders are doing well. We expected that with voters frustrated, upset at the system, that outsider candidates would do well. So it's not terribly surprising that they're doing good. What's a little interesting is that how close everybody else is to them. The margins here are very slim.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, too, because Ted Cruz isn't doing very well at home, but he's doing fairly well with his neighbors up north. So what does that say about him as a candidate? It'll be interesting to see how he actually ultimately pulls out in both states, both Texas and Oklahoma.
Why do you think that is that he would be doing so well in Oklahoma but not in his home state?
Well, back in Texas, Ted Cruz is a relatively new senator, so we don't really have quite the rapport with him as some states might, like Bernie Sanders in Vermont. Vermont just loves Bernie, but Bernie's been representing them for quite a while now, whereas Ted Cruz, Texas is still trying to feel out how they feel about him as a senator, whether or not he's a good representative. So that might be part of it. There's also a lot more diverse interests represented in Texas, and there could be a very sizable number of Texans who don't feel that Ted Cruz has done a good job of protecting their interests, whereas Oklahoma, the voters are a little more similar, and they might all be drawn to the same candidate.
Okay, and we now have Patrick Smith at Nelson Hall on OU's campus. They'll be joining us now. Patrick?
Thank you, guys. Here at OU in Nielsen Hall, students have gathered to watch the results of the 2016 presidential primary elections. There are both Democratic and Republican supporters in the room right now. They're eating pizza, getting along great, watching the results on the screen. I'll send it back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Awesome. Well, with in the recent caucuses and everything that we've been having, Trump has just come off what I call the Trump thumps. He's he's just been dominating that run that he had, and now he's running up. He's facing a little more competition here. Why do you think that is, and what can you tell us about that?
So I think part of it is that the field is becoming smaller. What we've seen is Trump is winning by 30 to 40% kind of consistently. And so what that means is there's another 60 to 70% of Republican voters that don't want him. And so as the field winnows, it seems that voters are shifting. And so Trump is not so much losing ground as he's actually facing more competition now.
Absolutely. And he's also had some really controversial statements coming out lately. Some behaviors at his rallies aren't particularly creating warm, fuzzy feelings about people or around people who might otherwise be leaning towards him. If they don't like these cues that they're getting from their candidate, it's a lot likelier that they'll stay home or they'll sit back a little bit longer and wait to make a decision on him.
So what would be worse for him? People sitting at home and not voting, or people going out and voting, whether it's for him or against him?
At this point, people going out and voting against him would be the worst thing that could happen because, as Jason mentioned, we're starting to narrow down the Republican field, and so the more people that go and join a different candidate, the harder it's going to be for Donald Trump to keep the momentum he has or gain even more momentum.
So bringing this all together, we've talked about how we've been seeing a lot more ads here in Oklahoma, and with all these tight races, the candidates hit Oklahoma with just ads, so many ads happening, and with an effort to turn undecided voters their way. Nightly's Haley Huey has that story.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Unlike Iowa and New Hampshire, Oklahoma isn't a state that usually sees many political ads. However, this primary, Oklahomans are seeing something different. Democratic candidates spending a lot of money on TV advertisements.
All the races are up in the air right now, and that means that Oklahoma may actually play a role this year. In past years, maybe not as much.
Ads like these can cost a candidate up to $800 per slot. So far, Bernie Sanders has spent $400,000 in Oklahoma, which is $100,000 more than he spent in Massachusetts. Hillary Clinton plans to match him.
The fact that the primary is open on the Democratic side on March 1st, that independents who've previously been shut out of primaries in this state actually have an opportunity to vote in a primary. Now, that could lead to increased excitement and interest in the Democratic primary.
Republican candidates have been slower to purchase presidential ad space. Political media experts say that will most likely change before Super Tuesday.
We've seen a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to outcomes. So on the Democratic side, we have more of a contest than we thought we would.
We won't know till Tuesday who will win the Oklahoma primary, but we already know who one big winner is. Local TV news stations. Haley Huey, OU Nightly.
Thanks, Haley. And we're going to take a little bit of a break now, but hang out and we'll be right back with some more analysis and new numbers.
Welcome back to OU Nightly's Super Tuesday special edition. And we have Braden joining us now for more poll numbers in Alabama. Braden?
Yep, we're ready to call both races in Alabama. Hillary Clinton for the Democrats, 80% of the vote, with just 1% of the districts reporting, but already ready to call the state for Hillary and their 17, or portions of their 17 delegates, the majority with her overwhelming win, bringing her total to 661 of the needed 2,383 delegates for the Democratic nomination. Donald Trump, Alabama. 38% of the vote right now, 11% of the districts reporting. Cruz and Rubio deadlocked at 20% each. But if Trump continues to dominate in Alabama, he'll take home 10 more delegates for a total of 125 right now, more than 100 than Rubio or Cruz. Kasich and Carson again well out of the race in most of these states. Back to you, Stephen.
Thanks, Braden. So, Lucianne, is that surprising that Hillary has such a large margin? They're already calling the state?
Not really. I mean, it's a repeat kind of what happened in South Carolina not that long ago. And we were predicting beforehand that Clinton would be able to carry the South, and Bernie Sanders really doesn't have quite the appeal down here as he does, for example, back in Vermont. And so I'm not too surprised that she was able to sweep so strongly down there.
And then what about on the Republican side? It's still close. It's always going to be close, but Trump does have that lead. Is that surprising at all?
Not really. If you're looking at the identities of the voters that are participating down there, they really are kind of the sort of voter that we would say Donald Trump is attracting. He knows his audience. I mean, the man can sell anything, right? The Apprentice, we all love it. And that is just, we're watching this happen, but like in politics instead of with business, for sure.
Okay, and we're going to talk about the Republicans in Alabama. We have Rubio and Cruz that are neck and neck. That's probably not surprising either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so this fits with what we were expecting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We were expecting Trump to do very well in these states in the South. Cruz and Rubio is, again, it's expected that it'd be a close fight for second place.
Right,
yeah.
Right. All right, thank you so much, Jason.
We've got all these numbers slowly rolling in, but of course, we're only getting 10, 11%, not very much percent of all the total delegates rolling in. But now we're going to go back to Braden with the Oklahoma Democrat update. Braden?
Yeah, like I said earlier, guys, for the Democratic race, if you have to do well in the cities, right now Bernie Sanders is dominating the universities, Oklahoma State and the University of Oklahoma, Cleveland County, Payne County, respectively, going to Bernie Sanders, 48% to Clinton's 44%. Clinton still has an advantage in Tulsa and Oklahoma City and most of rural Oklahoma right now, keeping her close with Bernie. But that's really why, as I said earlier, Same story on the Republican side, that who's doing well is doing well. Trump 32% really carrying rural Oklahoma, western and southern Oklahoma. Cruz doing well in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. 32% to 31%. The closest race right now in the nation is Oklahoma on both sides. 23% for Marco Rubio. Still plenty of delegates to be had here in the Sooner State that look to be pretty evenly divided right now. Carson 7%, Kasich 4%. Only 13% of the districts reporting for Oklahoma. So we have a long way to go here in the Sooner State, but close, tight races continue. Guys?
Okay, so from looking at those numbers, it looks like we have a really tight race between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah,
so real quick.
In our Oklahoma numbers, we're still waiting for our larger towns to report in, and so as that unfolds, it'll get more fun.
We're going to be really tight race in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to be tossing to Annie Durbin in Oklahoma City. Annie?
Yeah, guys, I'm at the GOP Oklahoma Republican headquarters here, and I gotta say the vibe here is just too good. I'm here in front of a poster that John Wayne, Donald Trump, and Ronald Reagan. People here are just awesome. We have people filled in all kinds of rooms. I was talking earlier to a man, over here. His name is Corey Perry, and I know you said earlier that you're a Rubio fan, so how do you feel right now with the race being so tight with Donald Trump and Rubio right now?
Well, I think it's indicative of what we've seen over this entire primary race. America has a lot of choices, and so it's going to come down to what the people ultimately want, be it Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, or anyone else.
And what is it that you see different in Rubio that you see compared to other candidates?
Well, you talk about someone that's aspirational and can really bring the party together and bring America together for that cause on either side of the aisle, it's Marco Rubio. He's a person that has a vision for the future and for our right now. And so for me, that's what I need. He's someone that supports our troops as a veteran. He's someone that I can look to as a guy that's a father. And I'll be a father one day. He's laying the groundwork. We have to be able to look to our leaders for guidance in our everyday lives and hope that it's someone we can be proud of, and he's that guy for me.
So are you more voting on the candidate, or are you voting on the party in this situation?
For me, it's based on the candidate and the issues. Now, I'm a Republican through and through. There's no in between for me, but at the end of the day, he is a candidate that transcends all barriers, be it party affiliation, race barriers, or anything. It's Marco Rubio.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and hope you have a good rest of your night, and best of luck.
You too.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, and it's back to you.
Thank you, Annie. They are live at the Republican headquarters in Oklahoma City, talking to a lot of people. Obviously, someone out there talking to Marco Rubio. What do you think Rubio's chances are here, and how does he affect voters?
Well, so his chances have been second place at best. All of the polling shows that he will not be first place here. But for him, again, that's kind of his best possible outcome, is if he can make a solid second here, which will provide him steam and momentum as this process unfolds.
Great. Thanks.
And now we're gonna go to Braden Long again with some Texas updated numbers. Braden, what do you got for us?
Texas Democratic race right now still pretty far apart. Clinton 66%, Sanders 32%. Clinton continuing her southern swing with 15% of the districts reporting. Bernie Sanders catching up a little bit from our last report, but still the former First Lady of Arkansas in Texas is doing very well. Republicans still pretty close. The vote is dividing a little bit between Trump and Rubio right now. 39% for Cruz, 28% for Donald Trump. As we go further into it, Kasich at 5%, Carson at 4%, Rubio again at 20%. Jeb Bush is even still getting votes in Texas, 2.5% of the vote, as seen in reporting right now, with 29% of the districts reporting in the Lone Star State. Oklahoma, still pretty close, 48% Sanders, 44% Clinton, same as last reported. Again, Clinton doing well in the cities, Sanders doing well at the universities, pretty close margin in the Sooner State, still going to be ongoing with 13% of the precincts reporting. The Republican race in Oklahoma keeps getting closer right now, 31 to 32%. We're going to keep getting updating information as we go throughout the evening. 23% for Rubio, 7% for Carson, 4% for Kasich right now here in Oklahoma. These races are really tightening up, guys. Continuing updates as we go forth, but Oklahoma still the prime battleground state right now.
Thank you, Braden. Well, it looks like they are still battling in Oklahoma. And to the minority voters, what do you think what their votes are going to be like in Oklahoma? How do you think that will play into who wins Oklahoma?
Well, so Trump's language has put up walls and barriers, and so it's highly likely that Trump will not do well among non-white voters, and even even with like non-male voters as well. So that's what I think will probably happen. Cruz and Marco have been more careful about how they phrase these things. Right. They have tried to make immigration, bills in the past to mixed success, but they seem more welcoming. So.
Right. What do you think about that?
Well, in politics, at their core, we like to say it's about our identity, right? It's about who I am, who you are, and who we imagine we as a country will be, right? And so part of who I am, part of who you are things like our status as minorities or not as minorities, women, et cetera, religion. And so that's certainly driving a lot of what we're seeing here. It will be interesting, like Jason mentioned, to see exactly how the minorities shake out at the end, for sure.
Thank you, Lucianne. In order to win Oklahoma votes, candidates are going to need to appeal to the deeply rooted Native American tribes and nations that have deep ties to the Sooner State.
What I look for in a presidential candidate is if they're going to help the Native Americans, whether it be schooling or anything like that.
With this year's first-time voters gearing up to cast their votes, many Native American millennials are not sure where the candidates stand when it comes to Native American issues.
The topics that concern me are sovereignty, healthcare, and education, not only for our students, but maybe for our elders as well.
Vice Chairman Ted Grant of the Otoe-Missouri tribe feels that millennial voters need to choose a candidate who will recognize sovereignty issues of the Native American people.
That is very important to us. Without that, we wouldn't be able to have IHS or other health benefits for our people.
I've been paying attention to some of the elections and the debates, and I really haven't heard anything addressed toward the Native American people.
Vice Chairman Grant had this advice for the Native American millennial voters.
Look for the candidate that is a doer, not just a talker to make it sound real good, but someone that's actually going to do something for our Native American people.
Many Native Americans are still searching for a candidate that will address their issues. For OU Nightly, I'm Jeremy Deere.
Most Native American voters are looking for a candidate that takes the issues they face into consideration.
And now we're going to go to Braden again. We have new numbers in Arkansas for the Democrats. Braden?
Arkansas, but also Alabama. 80% reporting, or 1% reporting Clinton is projected to win in the southern state. No surprise there. Bernie Sanders, 15%, a repeat of South Carolina, like we talked about earlier on here in our special Super Tuesday coverage. But for Arkansas, Democrats, right now, the former First Lady of Arkansas is expected to go ahead and take her home state, or her previous home state, 72% for Clinton, 25% for Sanders. It's not even close for the former First Lady of Arkansas. The Republican race, she's expected to take home their 13 delegates right now. The Republican race, much closer, 1% separating Trump and Rubio. Rubio stronger in Arkansas, 32% Trump, 31% Rubio, 24% Cruz. Still pretty tight. This race in Arkansas, like Oklahoma, is tidying up pretty good right now. 6% Kasich, 4% Carson. Tennessee Democrats right now, Clinton, again, continuing that southern swing I mentioned earlier. Almost 70% of the vote, 68%, Sanders 30%, with 15% of the districts reporting. Bernie really not doing well in our southern states right now in Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina earlier. Much of the same being seen. Republicans, closer race. 44% Trump, 22% Cruz, but still pretty far spread between Trump and Cruz. Close between Cruz and Rubio, 19%, 6% Kasich, 5% Carson. But right now it looks like Trump's running away a little bit with Tennessee and Hillary running away with most of the southern states except Oklahoma. Guys, back to you. Oh, new update, Massachusetts. Apologies, new update out of Massachusetts if we want to take that. 52% Clinton, 47% Sanders. Clinton up from the Northeast whenever she represented New York, and she is still in a pretty tight race with one of the most liberal states in the nation. 10% of the precincts reporting right now. There are several dozens of delegates out of Massachusetts. 46% for Trump in the Republican race right now. Not really a contest. Expected to go ahead and take that state, but we're not quite ready to call it. 20% for Rubio, 19% Kasich, and Kasich's one of his stronger showings. Cruz and Carson not doing very well in the Northeast as expected, with 12% of those precincts reporting Trump running away in the Northeast as expected. We'll have more updating information coming up.
Thank you so much, Braden. Now let's go and talk about Arkansas Republicans. We have Trump and we also have Rubio there. They're almost neck and neck again. So we've got Trump and Ted Cruz kind of battling in some states, and now you've got Donald Trump and you've got Marco Rubio. What can you tell us about that?
So what we're seeing so far, if we look at county level results so far, Trump is winning in the country and Rubio is winning in the cities. And so as we look at the breakdown, for whatever reason, voters in urban zones like Marco Rubio better. So, yeah.
All right, so now we're going to go to Rashida Kaba at the Hillary Clinton rally in Oklahoma City. Rashida?
Behind me, there are a lot of people here, a lot of supporters here that have been supporting her for months and months. I've heard that people came all the way from Norway to campaign. Some of these people over here came all the way from different states just to give their support for Hillary Clinton. This race has been tight from the jump. Bernie Sanders has been leading in recent polls, but Hillary seems to be surging her way through. We're reporting here live at the Hillary Clinton Campaign Watch Party. Rashida Kaba, OU United.
Thanks, Rashida. So what can you tell us about, obviously a lot of people out there supporting Hillary. What can you tell us about Hillary in Oklahoma?
Well, Oklahoma is a really interesting state this election season, remarkably so, right? It's interesting as far as Hillary goes because it's really showing who her supporters are, who her base is, who she can rely on. And these are voters who are 45 years or older, Democrats of a specific generation, whereas Bernie Sanders is attracting a very different type of Democrat. And so this particular election cycle in this particular state is showing a split in the Democrat Party. What it means for the future, again, we don't know. There's so much about this we don't know, but it's certainly interesting and it certainly tells us a lot about what Hillary Clinton's path looks like moving forward. And it really contrasts her with President Obama, who did so well amongst 45 and younger. And so that's another development to be watching.
Thank you so much. Well, they are excited about those Cruz numbers in Oklahoma City here around the state. We're going now live to Republican headquarters in Oklahoma City with Haley Huey. Haley Huey, how's it looking down there?
Thanks, guys. I'm here at the Republican GOP in Oklahoma City, here with Kathy Costello, who just publicly endorsed Ted Cruz. Kind of explain some of the reasons why you are endorsing Ted Cruz and voting for him.
There are many good reasons to endorse Ted Cruz, but I have a very personal issue, a very personal reason why I've chosen Ted. I am the widow of the late Labor Commissioner for the state of Oklahoma, Mark Costello. I lost my husband in August, on August 23rd. We have 5 children, and our oldest son has suffered with mental illness for the past 8 years. He's been in and out of hospitals 10 times. And in August, we were having a quiet dinner with him at Brahms in Oklahoma City. And he inexplicably, in a psychotic, schizophrenic break, stabbed my husband to death. Ted Cruz is the only candidate running that has been actively advocating for mental health reform and has.
Thank you so much, Haley.
And now we are going to go to Lindsay Gomez in the News Center. What do you have for us, Lindsay?
Senator Bernie Sanders suggests he's in it for the long haul in this race for the Democratic presidential nomination. He said his campaign may have many enemies, but it will persevere.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And now I think we have some more information about Oklahoma.
Yeah, Ashley, Stephen, right now, Oklahoma, the youth vote really has spoken in the Democratic primary. 51, we're currently at a pretty deadlock, 50-50 right now, 28%, but Clinton, who is expected to really dominate the senior state less than a week ago, is now in a dead heat between between Senator Bernie Sanders and Hillary right now. The Republican side, we've taken a bit of a turn. 33% Cruz, 31% Trump. Ted Cruz really tapping into the evangelical vote here in the Sooner State. Kasich falling even further behind. Carson at 7%, Rubio at 24%. But right now, we continue to flip-flop in the Sooner State. Texas Democrats, Hillary Clinton expected to win 66%, taking home several of those over 100 delegates in the state of Texas. Bernie Sanders at 32%, 17% of the precincts reporting, so this race can get closer to determine delegates. But right now, Clinton surging in Texas. The race between Cruz and Trump still pretty close in Texas, 39% to 28%. Marco Rubio at 20%. Kasich and Carson again, not much of a threat. They're not being treated too kindly here on Super Tuesday. Marco Rubio again right there at 20%, still pretty close. Alabama, that southern swing for Hillary Clinton, as I keep repeating, is still in full function. 76% for Clinton, Sanders 18%. That race not even close in Alabama amongst the Democratic race. Now the Republican race, a little bit of a different story, a little bit closer, not by a lot. Trump at 41%, Cruz at 21%. Trump is really tapping into the blue-collar workers in the southern United States. Rubio at 19%. The real race there is for second place, as we've been mentioning. And Georgia, Democrats ready to call it. 74% for Hillary Clinton, winning another state. 25% for Bernie Sanders right now. Going ahead and continuing Hillary's run. Georgia's vote 56 delegates for that state. If she gets most of them, projected to have 735 of the necessary 2,383 to win. Completely blowing Sanders out of the water right now. And the Georgia Republican race, a little bit closer, but again, not by a lot. Trump tapping into that blue-collar vote, 44%, 23% for Cruz, 21% for Rubio. The real race there really is for second place and looks like for last as well. Carson at 6%, Kasich at 4%. But what I want to know is I still see on updating polls, we still see Jeb, Martin O'Malley, names like that. Guys, see if our experts can't tell us why we're still seeing names that aren't presidential campaigning on the ballot.
Okay, well, Jason, I'll let you take that answer.
Yeah, so the answer to this is surprisingly simple. Because they withdrew after the period to get your name off the ballot, they still have to stay on the ballot.
Okay, well, now I kind of want to talk about some of the southern states. How does religion play into the Republican candidates?
So with them in particular, states in the South have historically been very religious and in particular very Christian states, and even more very Protestant Christian states. And what we've been seeing is that usually Protestant Christian candidates go for some kind of like a values-based candidate that has some kind of appeal to both the religious masses and their leaders. That has not been working this election cycle. So what we've been finding is that Trump has surprisingly been taking a lot of these Protestant Christians when our expectation was that this would not work out.
So it's just a little bit of surprising about that.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely, and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio are really trying to position themselves as a more religious candidate. But interestingly enough, all the religious folks are going and voting for Donald Trump, who really hasn't made much of an effort other than his speech at Liberty University, which sort of fell flat with certainly religious leadership, maybe not necessarily religious voters themselves.
So we're talking about all most of the religious voters going for Donald Trump, but he's really been not too high on the Muslim voters. Right. What can you tell us about the Muslim community and how Donald Trump is affecting their vote?
Right. So for many of us, right, our faith systems or what we feel or what we practice is very important to us. And so to be attacked or perceive yourself as being attacked by a candidate is certainly harmful. It doesn't really, like I mentioned before, inspire warm, fuzzy feelings directed towards that candidate. And so Donald Trump is really not doing at all well among Muslim Americans who have before in the past been, a small part of them at least, Republicans. And so that's going to be a hard path for Republicans who are trying to rebrand themselves as more inclusive. That's going to be a hard path moving forward for them.
Great. Thank you, Lysiane. With the 2016 presidential primary season in full swing and we are racing forward, Nightly's Rashida Kaba reports one community says they're not happy with the attention the election has brought to their community. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Muslims are in the middle of a political firestorm this election year.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims. Our country cannot be the victim of horrendous attacks.
Come to our country, but all Muslims? Seriously? What kind of signal does that send to the rest of the world?
The imam, or religious leader of the Islamic Society of Greater Oklahoma City, believes it's dehumanizing and thinks it's causing hate crimes against the Muslim community to increase.
Islam is a message of love, Islam is a message of outreach, Islam is a message of interfaith, and Islam is a message of outreach to others.
One Muslim millennial says she can't tell if there are any candidates who will really step up for Muslims.
I'm just tired of trying to defend, and my friends, we're all just tired of trying to defend our religion, of trying to say, this isn't what it is.
At the mosque, I met a non-Muslim who says the election sparked her interest and brought her here to see what it really means to be a part of this Muslim community.
If that one person was your religion and you're like, oh God, what are they doing? God, they're gonna make the rest of us look bad. And I mean, it's true, it kind of does, but you have to remember that this one person isn't a representative of the whole.
A Muslim community under siege says they're American too and want to be treated that way. Rashida Kaba, OU Nightly.
So speaking of the Muslim community, what do you think they're looking for in a candidate? Who do you think that they are going to be putting their support for?
Well, I would imagine at this point, and this is mostly speculation, but some based on fact, that they are not voting Republican. What they're looking for is that they're going to feel welcome, that as Americans, that they feel that this is also their country. What I've been watching, though, is there seems to be a surprising amount of activity from Muslim groups getting their people out to vote, which I did not see a couple elections ago. So.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. When we talk about religious communities, we always talk about Christians, and we think of them as being really great at mobilizing voters. And so to see the Muslim community being able to step out in this way is a really big moment for faith in politics in general, more broadly.
Thank you so much. Well, now we're going back to Braden with some new updated numbers. Braden, what is going on out there?
Well, we'll go ahead and recap Vermont for the Democratic senator from Vermont. It's Bernie Sanders, 87%. Well over that 50% margin needed to take home all of the delegates from the state of Vermont, which amount to about 13% for the vote for Clinton, but not going to get a lot coming out of the Green Mountain State. 26% of the votes of the precincts reporting. Now, the Republican race is really John Kasich's best chance for any delegates at all. 30% of the vote, second place, 33% Donald Trump, 19% Rubio, 10% Cruz, about a quarter of the districts reporting. We'll see a lot more coming out of Vermont coming up. But as I mentioned earlier, I have another question. We have, with greater than 50% of the vote, you get most of the delegates in a lot of states, or you get delegates and at-large delegates. See if our experts can't determine the difference between delegates and at-large delegates. Guys?
All right, great.
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the way that the system basically works is that for every congressional district, you get 3 delegates. This is more or less the same in both parties. Now, there are some extra math things that happen here. You know, if it's just 3, maybe you get some extras. But the at-larges are then bonuses. So if the party controls the state house, controls the governor, if they have members of Congress and the Senate, those become like extra delegates, these at-larges. So it's the base plus a bonus.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think we are going to go to Amy Schneebeck in the News Center. Amy?
Thanks. Now, guys, I just want to take a quick break and just recap tonight's projections. Now, breaking just in the last few minutes or so, Ted Cruz is projected to win Texas along with Hillary Clinton. According to CNN projections, though, both Clinton and Trump are big Super Tuesday victors. Here's a quick review of states that are wrapping up polling. Clinton has won 5 states: Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama, Virginia, and Georgia. Texas will make 6 now. Now, Clinton is doing exceptionally well so far in the South. This goes back to early concerns in the Sanders campaign of not having black supporters or their vote. Clinton has proven to be favorable among minorities so far in the campaign. Now, Sanders did take a win in his home state of Vermont, And Trump has swept the GOP floor, taking wins in Tennessee, Massachusetts, Alabama, and Georgia. Now, again, Cruz is projected to win in Texas. But Trump also had a great night along with Clinton. He has certainly secured his spot tonight as one of the top, if not the top, GOP contender. And one of the most recent polls, Cruz and Clinton are projected to win Oklahoma. That's it for projections so far. Those could change. We'll have more later on in the evening. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Amy. So let's talk about what Amy was just talking about.
Okay.
They say they're predicted for Cruz and for Clinton to win Oklahoma. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I was, I guess, kind of surprised. I was expecting Sanders, but
Why were you expecting Sanders?
Well, so he had a lot of momentum, a lot of buildup. A lot of recent polls had said that it looks like he had a slight edge. Looking again at the county breakdowns, Clinton handily won urban districts.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely, and I guess it's not too surprising that Cruz is really pulling ahead in Oklahoma, the Republican field. He certainly speaks to a lot of economic issues here that the state's facing and the interests that the citizens of the state particularly have. So that's probably not too surprising. I think Donald Trump might be a little surprised. He seems to be a little self-assured about his winnings in other states, but it's a good day for Cruz in Oklahoma.
Thank you, Lucianne. All right, Braden, what can you tell us about the Oklahoma Republicans?
Well, right now that race is still pretty close here in Oklahoma for the Republicans. 34% Cruz, 30% Trump. Cruz is pulled away, still pretty close at 45%. Marco Rubio at 24%, Carson and Kasich still well behind. As we said, Cruz really tapping into evangelicals, Trump kind of tapping into to the more rural blue-collar areas of the state. For Democrats, it's still pretty close. 52% Sanders, 41% Clinton, the opposite of what we really were just talking about. 45% of the district's reporting. So this state's not really ready to call just yet. 52% Sanders, 41% Clinton. Sanders tapping into the universities, as I said earlier, with Clinton still holding a little bit of the vote. Now going up to Massachusetts for the Republican nomination first. Donald Trump pulling away in Massachusetts, expected to, if he reaches that 50% mark, take home most of, if not all of Massachusetts, 42 delegates. Marco Rubio at 19%, Kasich at 19%, battle for second place there for any delegates at all. Ted Cruz and Ben Carson not doing too hot up there in Massachusetts. Still a lot of districts left to report, only 12% reporting. And this race is actually closer than Oklahoma's. 51% Clinton, 48% Sanders, 20% of the districts reporting for that as well. Clinton still doing well in Northeast and Southern states, really carried the Southern states as we mentioned, and still much closer up Northeast with 20% of the districts reporting in the Democratic race. Virginia Republicans, 36% Trump, 31% Rubio, 17% Cruz. Trump and Rubio really battling it out there in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Kasich and Carson not really a factor there. Cruz again nearing 20% but not doing well out east. Kind of really hovering around Oklahoma and Texas right now for most of the delegates for him right now. The delegate count for Donald Trump right now is over 100 for Super Tuesday compared to the rest of the candidates. Clinton in Virginia, 65%, ready to call that. 91% of the districts reporting. So Hillary Clinton will be the winner out of Virginia. Bernie Sanders at 35%, putting up a little bit of a fight, but not much out east. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, that's 49 delegates at stake in that open primary. Out in that open primary, Virginia Republicans, as we mentioned, also close as well, with Trump leading right now. Guys?
Thanks, Braden. So with Bernie Sanders up in the Northeast completely taking Vermont, you may expect to see him take more up in the Northeast, but it's really close right now. Hillary leading Massachusetts. Is that surprising, or is that what we expected?
I mean, it is and it isn't, in the sense that Massachusetts it's close to his home state of Vermont. It has certainly more liberal Democrats that would probably have more views in common with Bernie, but it's not too surprising because Hillary Clinton, this is her election cycle to lose, right? And so it's certainly, in that sense, not too surprising. She's spent a lot of money and time trying to win these states. Speaking
of her spending a lot of time trying to win, she's winning Oklahoma. Many people thought Bernie may take it from her, but she spent she had her husband, former President Bill, come here twice actually. What do you think? How do you think that played into her wrapping up and finally getting this projection to win Oklahoma?
Yeah. Well, so once a president leaves office, they become more popular. Yes. There's this small dip right afterwards, and then over time, it goes up. People generally like Bill. He's a great campaigner. He's very personable. And so having him there where Clinton has struggled to actually connect to voters on a personal level, her husband does not. And so I imagine that has been tremendously helpful.
I definitely agree with that. Thank you so much. And now we're going to go back with Braden. Braden, what do you have for us?
Yeah, no offense to contradict exactly what we were just talking about, but the Democratic race in Oklahoma has been called for Bernie Sanders, winning over 50% of the vote right now, 51%. The universities really came out strong for Bernie. With Cruz is also projected to win in Oklahoma as well, really tapping into what we've already talked about. So for the Sooner State, Bernie Sanders, Ted Cruz here in Oklahoma, our most heated battleground state has been decided. Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you so much. Well, that turned around really quickly.
Yeah.
But we are going to take a break, and we'll be back with more information. Thank you. Well, welcome back, and we just got some new updates, and it looks like Cruz has won Oklahoma.
Yeah, the projected come out have just come out a few moments ago, taking down Donald Trump.
Yes.
How's that?
Well, I think, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's probably tied into economic issues and interests that the state has. Definitely is reflective of what candidate Cruz, has really endorsed throughout his campaign. And so I'm sure he's really been able to connect with voters in that sense.
Well as Cruz, they are projecting Hillary taking the victory here in Oklahoma. Bernie, right? Bernie, I apologize, excuse me.
Last minute switch over.
Bernie, yeah, they switched it. Braden came in there and switched it on us real quick.
Yeah.
So, real last minute switch, can you explain that maybe a little bit?
Well, so it was a close race to start with. As more precincts report, the data becomes more refined, and so our estimations get better. And so this is probably just a product of all the polls are closed now. All the results are just about in, and so now we have more certainty.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. So we've also, just in, Ted Cruz winning Texas, saving his home state, taking it back from Trump. He needed that. What are the numbers looking like? Not a super large margin, 48% to 28% over Trump. Is that big enough for him to stay in this?
Well, that's a good question, because what they're reflecting right now, the numbers we're seeing are actually the percentage of popular vote that he's won. It's not necessarily how many delegates he's won. And so the problem for candidate Cruz in this case is that he might not have won enough delegates from his state to really make his mark on Donald Trump, who's already gotten so many delegates across the rest of the country. So what he really needed to have done tonight is probably win by huge margins in the popular vote so that his delegate count would be significantly higher, because they have 155 delegates up in Texas. So what looks like, 40% versus 28% may actually come down to a handful of delegates.
Thank you. And also in Texas, word is Hillary Clinton has just won Texas. Give us a little insight on that, please, Jason. Is that surprising, or
Well, it's not surprising. It's bad news for Sanders because on their side, there's around 200 delegates at play, and so Clinton continues to expand her lead out, and it makes it harder for Sanders to catch up.
Okay, thank you so much. And now we have Courtney Boggs joining us from Comanche County. Courtney?
I'm here at the Comanche County Election Board in Lawton, Oklahoma, where votes are starting to roll in. 11 of the precincts have been calculated. For the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton is in the lead with 53% of the vote. Bernie Sanders is in second with 42% of the vote. The Republican Party has been neck and neck. The two candidates duking out at the top. It's been going back and forth between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. As of now, Ted Cruz is ahead with 38% of the vote, while Donald Trump follows with 31% of the vote. That's all for now. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Courtney. Well, obviously she said Hillary leading 53%, but we already know projected Bernie to take the state. Is there any chance that we could see this pool any closer before it's all said and done, or are we pretty sure it's wrapped up?
I mean, it could always pull closer. They're still counting. We like to think we know in advance, but like we just saw, it can switch over really fast. So we'll wait and see, right?
So on any of these numbers, are any of them surprising to you so far?
I think so far it's within about what we expected. That Cruz is winning here is kind of a surprise. Yes. A lot of polls had Trump a heavy favorite, and so for him to be not winning it's kind of shocking. So
how do these wins for Cruz projected here in Oklahoma, how does that relate to his issues on economics, and does that relate to the people and Donald Trump losing? You spoke a little bit about the economic efforts earlier. Can you go a little more in depth?
Donald Trump is their classic city folk, right? Versus Ted Cruz, who's really positioned himself as, a good old-fashioned Texas cowboy. I mean, who can't love a guy like that? Or at least that's what he thinks, right? And so he really has focused a lot of his energy on developing economic policies that would favor the oil industry, would favor agriculture industries, which are obviously a really big part of the Oklahoma economy. He also has been he said friendly things about helping out education, which is also another focus here, certainly with certain things that have emerged recently in Oklahoma. And so by taking the positions that he has, he really is able to connect with the voters here.
And speaking of that economy, Oklahoma has one of the highest poverty rates in the nation. And Nightly's, well, it looks like we're waiting on that. Nightly's Lindsay Gomez explores the importance of income disparity in this year's presidential race.
Here at the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma, it's been busier these days. The layoffs in the oil and gas industry have made this state's economic downturn worse. Income disparity is a huge issue in this year's campaign, so I went to find out if it's a big enough problem to drive Oklahoma's poor to the polls.
I open up my fridge sometimes and I just want to lay down and cry because there's no food.
23-year-old Kayla Smith is working 2 jobs. She has a photography business and does contracting on the side, but has to work at a Norman retailer, making $9 an hour to pay the bills. But even then, she can't afford to live comfortably.
My tire on my car, I found a nail in it the other day, and I've been driving on it because I don't have enough money to replace it.
Smith values every cent in her pocket like gold.
$20 to me feels like I have to cut off an arm or something because I don't want to give that away. I have $20. I need to hold on to that for as long as I can.
Smith says she's never been politically involved until Bernie Sanders came along.
I've done this 180, and now I'm looking in the direction of how in the world can I vote for this person? Like, tell me what I have to do to sign up to vote.
Smith says Bernie is the only candidate in her eyes that wants to help not just one struggling family, but millions of others living in her same situation. But the question is, will other poor Oklahomans follow her to the polls? Lindsay Gomez, OU Nightly.
Bernie Sanders has polled well among the low-income Oklahomans, and as expected, Smith says she cast her vote for Bernie.
Well, now we've got some Georgia numbers coming in, some finalized Georgia numbers, I believe. Braden, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Georgia's on Clinton's mind right now. She won big, 72% for Clinton, 27% for Sanders, 30% of the district's reporting, but albeit Southern swing, as I keep saying, that cliche is gone for Clinton in Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, most of the southern states. For the Republicans, a little bit closer, but Donald Trump is expected to win 43% to Cruz's 23%. The battle was really for second place all along and for last, with about half the precincts reporting. Donald Trump again tapping into the blue-collar votes out of Georgia, 43% of the vote, winning in the Peach State, guys.
Thank you, Braden. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A lot of great insight. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Everything kind of holding form except for a little bit maybe here or there, but for the most part, everything was as expected. So we really appreciate you guys coming in here and giving your insight. Of course, Braden, always doing good. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a good night and enjoy Super Tuesday. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.